Hey everyone, Andre here along with Tom and John, and we just got done playing a ton of new Super Mario Brothers Wonder. That's why I said they should never use the new line, because this is a new Mario game, but not part of the new Super Mario Brothers series. In any case, it is a great game. We had a ton of fun playing solo and multiplayer, all at Nintendo Live at PAX in Seattle, and we're here to talk about all of it, including the secrets we found, our stance on multiplayer, how, whether it works or not better than it did before in past games, what we think of the new transformations, all of that, because we explored pretty much every angle, every facet of this demo that we could. So Tom, let's start with you, who's also, I suspect, a longtime, I know, a longtime Mario fan. You were there with me in the trenches of the original games, effectively. Yeah. So what did you think of Super Mario Brothers Wonder? Is it truly wondrous?
Well, the art style and everything is, it's super lovely to see, basically, and it's handled super smoothly. I really enjoyed not bumping into people in co-op. And Elephant Mario, he reminded me of Rambi from Donkey Kong Country, so that's a good thing in my books.
That's always a great thing. Anything that reminds you of Rambi is a great thing. And I see you're actually showing off your elephant keychain right now that you got. We'll have to get a close-up of that for the video. So John, what did you think of Super Mario Brothers Wonder?
Alright, so the old games were all about evolution. Mario 1 to 2, it evolved. Mario 3, evolved again. And this feels like it finally gets back on that trend of evolving the series, and that's what the main takeaway is. This is new. This is actually new.
That's a great point. I mean, I think that's a good way of looking at it. That's, I think, why the new Super Mario Brothers games always didn't quite sit right with me, because it didn't feel like they were evolving the Mario series, they were just iterating on it, whereas the original Marios were all about evolving, and this is what that gets back to. There are still some shades of new Super Mario Brothers in there, but not many, and they're doing so much more on top of it all that it's easy to overlook the parts that might remind you of the previous games. Now, obviously, this is still based on a limited demo. The demos were about 15 minutes each, and there was a surprising amount of levels in there, to the point that they effectively had, like, it starts off on this linear world map, and then you eventually, after 2 levels, you get to a more open segment where you can then, go between different levels. So it's pretty hard to fit all of them into a single playthrough, but like I said, we played through all of them and played through them enough times we played all of it. So I think, did we all have a chance to try co-op and solo, or?
I played 2-player and 3-player. I got to watch a lot of single player, so I got a good feel for it.
Okay, now I think one of your concerns involves the camera. Actually, real quick, how did you think multiplayer worked overall compared to, say, the past games?
I thought it was better overall, really. Not running into people, you get none of that. It's fun to kind of screw over your friends, but at the same time, it gets irritating over time. So I think this one is a good new direction to avoid. So.
One thing I really loved is the new item use feature. The fact that you can use it as a balloon and it stays there. If someone's needs a power up, you can inflate it and then it's be like, hey buddy, I got an item right here, and they'll be like, oh thank you man, I had that actually happen on stage. Someone was like, oh yeah, thank you. So I love that element, how unintrusive this is, and that's how it should have been.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, because it brings back basically the little pocket window from Mario World. I think it was also in some of the other games where you can store an item, but this time you can store 4 at a time. And so anyone can access that at any time. I mean, so you could still, if you want, just troll and just take all the items for yourself. But yeah, it works really well. And I think that's what surprised me is, we'll get into the Wonder stuff soon enough, but how good they made multiplayer feel. I didn't like doing it in New Super Mario Brothers U. It could be fun for the gimmicky troll factor, as you guys were saying, but once it got down to it, at the end of the day, I'm playing Mario for the platforming action, and having 3 other players bouncing around, stomping you into the ground, it just got irritating. None of that here. None of that, because you're not interfering with each other. You can all exist within the world without worrying about running into each other, unless you're Yoshi, in which case someone can hop on you, for instance, which I think also works well. Otherwise, it's, I really like how they handled everything here, because you also have elements like when you turn into a ghost, you can fly to a player and then they can revive you, so it almost makes it feel even more teamwork based. Again, it's like an iteration of the bubble mechanic from New Super Mario Brothers.
On that quickly, I would say the ghost is a lot easier to get to. Before, the bubble could be kind of a hassle going around. It was harder. The ghost is more friendly for a more cooperative play, I'd say.
And they have a nice user interface for it, where it shows you the nearest player with this arrow to connect. So if you ever confused of where you are, it helps out immediately if you get lost. You're like, oh, there I am, and there's the nearest person I need to get to.
Yeah, it's really well done, which again, it's another thing that I liked about this is whenever someone gets a power up or they power down, the entire game doesn't freeze for everyone to show that person evolving or transforming, whereas now they just they freeze themselves, but no one else is affected, which is so much better because it would feel like it would just intrude upon the gameplay where it's just like, why am I stopping? Oh, because John is powering up. Luckily, that's not the case anymore. So they really refined the multiplayer to a point that really feels good. Now, I know Tom does have a slight issue here, which I'll let Tom explain in a second.
The only thing I noticed is that if somebody wants to go really quickly through the level, the screen will scroll with them, and if you want to do some exploring, you're kind of pushed along, or you might get squeezed into gaps and die, basically. And so I found if that does happen, you have to follow the faster player.
Right, so to clarify how the camera works this time, I believe in New Super Mario Bros. U, I think everyone controlled the camera effectively, like it would try to follow everyone, whereas here what they've done is now only one player at a time is in control of the camera, basically, where the camera's following that player, and that starts, I believe, as player 1, but then after that point, whoever either finishes the level first or, more accurately, lands atop of the flagpole highest, then they get a little crown, and they're determined to be who the camera follows.
Yeah, I actually like this idea of where it could create a nice, like, friendly competition. It's like, who can get the crown, you know, who can steal the flagpole first.
You know, I think what John is saying is it's a skill issue, Tom.
It kind of is, but if you're looking for secrets and stuff, you know, you miss out on them. So it's different when you've played it a few times. I'm sure it'll be no problem later on, but at first when you're exploring the game, you might notice it.
Yeah, I knew what you're saying, because when I was in control of the camera, it felt perfect. When I wasn't, I'm like, okay, you know, slow it down a little bit at times, but I think they found a good middle ground. You know, there's no perfect way of doing solo or sharing single screen co-op in a Mario game. Yeah. I think what they arrived at works pretty well. So let's, and to the point that I actually want to play like a Mario game multiplayer now, which is something I've never wanted to do in 2D Mario. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about, you know, the big thing in this game is really the wonder factor, if you will. You know, you've got the, is it the wonder flowers that you trigger, and those which are effectively optional. We went through entire levels where we didn't activate all the wonder flowers, and they add a really fun twist. Like one on the level with the Stampede, for instance, which we see in the trailers, if you activate the wonder flower, which actually, I think they appear during the Wonder Flower segment. In any case, you can ride on the Stampede. They jump into the air super high. I believe you leap from them to like a ridiculously tall flagpole, which is hilarious. They're like sliding down this mile-long fire pole, your Mario flagpole, and it's like yes, that is what I want. I love being surprised and delighted, and even replaying through these levels multiple times, I was still finding new things to enjoy about them.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that it creates these multi-pathways that I don't think Mario has had in a long while. So there's even like side paths, secret paths that don't have like much of anything besides like a bonus area, and those are like, you had to like pound the ground where a flower was saying he was bored, and it would launch you up into the sky, and suddenly just in a whole new area. And like, I loved how like it wasn't like just obviously given it to me, it was just a little hint.
You know, and you kind of touched on something there too that I think, you know, I haven't done an in-depth analysis, but this game feels more interactive than any other Mario that I can recall. That it almost gave me shades of like Donkey Kong Country Returns and Tropical Freeze, where you can like stomp platforms to like create new pathways for those characters, the wildebeest-like things, or you can, you know, use a drill and drill through giant blocks in the way. There's a whole level based around that, which, by the way, the Wonder Seed, the Wonder Flower there, like that actually shocked me. Where like you're drilling through the ground, you activate the Wonder Seed, and bam, like a huge thwomp-like thing, or whatever the new thwomp-like enemies are called, comes like flattening down. You have to race your way to the bottom to avoid being squished by this thing, fitting the little pockets of these, you know, of the bricks you haven't destroyed. Like, that's so well done.
That was my favorite segment of this whole demo today. Like, the surprise of coming down like, whoa, and then having to wait and move sideways when it crushes blocks to open new areas, and then break the crystal blocks. Kind of splitting your team up at times while trying to collect all the collectibles. That was the most impressive part of the demo.
Yeah, I think the whole, like, it's going to add an even more fun layer of looking for secrets, I feel like. Because for one, I actually wanted to seek them out because it's inherently self-rewarding. Like, the gameplay is fun. I enjoyed finding new things, which means I wanted to find the secrets, which will lead to more gameplay, which is great.
And you know, was it just me, or was finding things like, did the levels have a bit more bite than they usually did? Like, I would end up like being turned into a ghost a lot more. Like the underground level, those new types of thwomp-like creatures, which
That's what I'm talking about.
yeah, it's like they would kill you super quick and it would just catch you off guard. But like with the new forgiving feature, it never felt like it was a slowdown. It was just like, it felt like a challenge. Like, oh, I gotta think before I act.
Right. Yeah. What do you think, Tom?
It was a tough segment at the end of that level where you have to almost speed run through a whole bunch of them at once, like an Indiana Jones like moment. So
Yeah. Speaking of Indiana Jones, which has chase sequences, I think there's that one little what kind of creature was it that's like running away from you and it's like
A little ferret.
yeah, a little ferret-like thing.
yeah, like a badger or
Yeah.
like a ground squirrel or something.
And it's like, you know, it's totally optional, but it's like carrying a coin that it's like, I want that coin. You're like chasing this little ferret down, and there's like, I think during that same point, there's like pipes in the way they can push, and again, another interactive element is where pipes you can push around now. And like, there's so many like different things that are like changing how you think about platforming through Mario, at least. I mean, yeah, really across the entire series, especially stands out in light of the new Super Mario Brothers games, where like for me, I was just going autopilot because there was nothing engaging me. But here, I'm like, I want that. I need to hurry and find a path to get to him quickly.
Yeah, and you were talking about Donkey Kong Country, and a thing from Donkey Kong Country that I think is applied here a lot more than previous Marios is the diegetic use of like the environment. So like there would be plants that would grow out, or the Wonder Effect would change the objects already in there into like crazy moving pipes. It made the courses feel alive.
Exactly. The courses do feel alive like the Donkey Kong games, whereas they didn't in some previous, 2D Mario games that will remain unnamed. Yeah, and the entire game has such a lively atmosphere that like it makes it fun just to be there, and it's always changing, especially with the Wonder Flowers. But even without the Wonder Flowers, there's a lot going on here. Like, you don't need those to enjoy what they're doing. But sorry,
Badges?
there are badges, yes. Like we were able to try out. I think there were 5, 6 in the demo. We actually unlocked a badge. I think do you remember what badge we unlocked?
The wall hop.
The wall hop, right, where you can wall jump effectively. So the badges are interesting because they, as you probably know, they let you equip a special ability that all the characters use. Everyone playing uses the same badge. I don't think you can equip different badges, though I wish you could. That'd be nice. And they give you different abilities, whether it's gliding through the air using your hat, or wall jumping effectively, or you get a high jump by crouching from like Mario 2. And you know what it kind of felt like to me? It kind of felt like they took the idea of every character having a specific trait, and rather than tying it to that character, just made it an option where everyone can use that trait.
Yeah, the badges, they're gonna make it a different way to play through each level and make it more replayable.
I just wish the grappling hook were here. I wanted to try the grappling hook.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the grappling hook looks like a lot of fun. Now, I noticed on the underground stage, there was the hold charge to jump higher badge, and it seemed to be instinctively designed for that level, because when you drilled into the ground, it would hold the charge already. So when you jumped out, you could swap and hit the ceiling and climb on the ceiling. So it seems they have some levels specifically designed for it, and I think that's what the Prince's Selection or Choice is for, and I think that's neat.
Yeah, don't sleep on that drill power, because that thing seems to be a lot of fun. It's probably the most involved. Actually, both the drill and the elephant are probably the most involved Mario power-ups we've actually seen. But yeah, the drill's a lot of fun. You can drill underground into the ceiling. You can hop between the two, which is something I really enjoyed. And then they built a level around that, where, as I mentioned, you're trying to outrace the thwomp-like thing. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. Now, we haven't really touched on the elephant yet, which is of course the major new power-up here. Especially with it being a weird full-on transformation, which Mario hasn't done in the 2D games. Like, they've always been costumes or suits. Here we have a full-on, like, he's an elephant. Everyone's an elephant. Peach is an elephant. What did you think of the elephant, Tom?
The elephant surprised me in how much depth there was to it, because its trunk kind of hits enemies, but then there's water in the level, and you can suck up that water and hold it. And
like Donkey Kong.
Well, like Donkey Kong, and spray it on the ground, and flowers will come up, or you kind of hit enemies, and you can store that water to kind of water the flower at the end after the flagpole.
Right, you can water things in the game using the elephant. Like, I was just doing it randomly, like random flowers would be triggered, it seemed like, and I'm like, oh, there's probably lots of secrets tied to this. And I was surprised too, because I actually had predicted the water feature when they first showed off the elephant, but I had suspected that your movement would be like slower, you'd be encumbered as an elephant. You're not. You're like super nimble still. And so I played through one of the demos as an elephant without ever even really seeing Mario. I'm like, that's a little weird, but as himself. But yeah, I was surprised by how good the elephant felt.
Yeah, one of my favorite things was seeing Yoshi having to carry one of the elephant players. He looked like he was having a day. He was just like, I'm trying my best.
Yeah, it's been a long day. It probably feels how we feel after 12 hours of PAX or whatever.
On the elephant as well, like on Yoshi, well, Yoshi, when he holds an item in his mouth, that's pretty hilarious. But everyone moves quick with the elephant, but the elephant will be a bit encumbered going through pipes. There is like a funny little animation where it's like, oh, it's tough getting through this pipe.
I love that. Again, it's all the little touches, like even from like just Mario smiling as he's like, running around. Like it's all those cute little things. Like even when Mario hops or any of the characters, I notice with Mario, I know everyone does it, but like when he hops into like an upward pipe, you see his like little legs kicking as he's like trying to get himself into it. It's just so cute. That's what the new games are missing, among other things, and it really feels like they took the feedback to heart. They learned a lot from that, and they really have gone all out here and just making a Mario game that feels new again, from the mechanics to the power-ups, most of them, to the world map, which hasn't ever been this robust before, or this open, freeing, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess it's kind of like a Mario with the leaf and the raccoon tail, but with the elephant, when that squirrel is running away from you and throwing nuts at you, you can flick them back at the squirrel.
Yeah, it's great. You can use the elephant's trunk to like fling the projectiles back at enemies. Again, it gives you more options than I think we've really ever had before. But like Tanuki, I guess it'd be the closest thing to think of, like using the raccoon tail, like knock a Koopa shell back or something. But this feels more dynamic and more bespoke to that costume.
Now to speak on the non-elephant in the room, Yoshi. I did play Yoshi, and I was worried it would take away my enjoyment with how he's essentially at easy mode, but honestly, really didn't, because when a player dies, they go to a ghost, and it's not really much of a punishment. So Yoshi being like slowed down from a hit, it still feels like about the same kind of punishment. So I think Yoshi, if you want to play as Yoshi, it's not that bad of a time. You won't be able to transform, but you feel like a useful tool.
You feel like a tool?
Yeah, Yoshi was always a tool, let's be honest. But it was so much fun, even with the Yoshi, so I feel like even that's not even that bad. Like, it was still fun. You can't transform, but everything else is going on, especially in multiplayer. It's just, he's a good help.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Yoshi can let people jump higher. I almost sacrificed myself as Yoshi, but I recovered, so I didn't do the full Yoshi cycle. But just probably the worst part of Yoshi is just being jumped on by Elephant Mario. So
poor Yoshi. Yeah, I also tried Nabbit myself a little bit. I think I'll avoid him in the full game just because it's a little too easy mode for me. I like having that challenge. But I will say, actually, something else I want to comment on real quick that I think is improved with, as a side effect of how they handle multiplayer now, is, again, I didn't measure the platforms, maybe I'm wrong, but the platforming felt better to me, both because, one, the base controls feel really good here, but also, not that they did in the new games, but there's something they're doing here that feels really good, but also, they didn't have to design the platforms in a way that they all have to accommodate 4 people at a time, because they can all fit in the same space. So I think that's also probably why the game feels better, because it feels more like a normal Mario game when you're playing with other people, rather than in these weirdly huge, deformed Mario stages when you're playing with compared to how they used to be before the new games.
And you know what felt really nice and new was the twirl jump. Like, we've always had the ZL to do a twirl jump, but this one felt really nice. It gives you a little bit extra air, though I think it slows you down just a little bit more. So, and then you can do the extra twirl while in the air to make it even have more hang time.
Well, yeah. So I think the way it works is because because you had the twirl. I guess we came back in New Super Mario Bros. U from Mario World, but here it actually feels more impactful. Like, you actually get more lift out of it. So, and that's before you do, as you mentioned, the mid-air spin. That you can also do in New Super Mario Bros. U. God's a hard word. It's a hard title to say. Yeah. Really right. Tom, do you have any other thoughts about Mario Wonder?
I would like to touch on the Goombas briefly.
Yes.
In some of the levels, the Goombas are sleeping. When you run into them, you don't get hurt. You kind of wake up the Goomba, you knock it back a bit, and their expressions are just great if you look into them. So I'm looking forward to all sorts of little touches like that in the whole game.
Once again, it speaks to the level of detail here, where the enemies, they don't hurt you unless they're awake, and it's cute. It adds a little, just a little detail to the world. It makes it feel more alive. Like, these Goombas are minding their own business, and then here comes Mario, stomping the living daylights out of them for really no reason. They didn't care until he scared the living crap out of them. You can see that expression on their face. John, do you have any other thoughts about Mario?
I'm just super excited to play it. So many new ways to play, so many better quality of life changes and so many cute touches. Like every stage feels like it's just handcrafted by an artist. So I'm just excited. I want to play it soon, and you know, let's meet up online sometime.
Yeah, it's actually a game I would want to play online now. Yeah, the game was a ton of fun. I had a blast with it, and I can't wait to try more of it when, you know, it eventually releases. So yeah, there you have it, guys. Our impressions of Super Mario Bros. Wonder from playing it for over an hour at PAX Live. It's out there now. So if you have a PAX Nintendo Live badge for Sunday or Monday at this point, go play it yourself. I think they're there on Monday, right?
I think so. I think it's the full time.
Okay, yeah, it should be. So go play it if you can. It's a ton of fun. This is legit the most excited I've been for 2D Mario in literally decades. As one who grew up with 2D Mario, it's been a long time since I've really been this excited for one. So I can't wait to see how it ends up in the final game. But what we've seen so far is extremely promising, and I can't wait to play more of it. So with that, everyone, thanks for watching, and go check out the rest of our coverage of on the channel of Super Mario Bros. Wonder. With that, we'll catch you later. Bye, everyone.